It's recording.
Hey, David, can you hear me? Give me a thumbs up. We're turning up your volume.
I can hear you, but I only see the top of your head. So you might want to adjust the camera.
Hey, David, can you speak, please?
I am speaking. You should be able to hear me.
There you are. There you are. I hear you.
Okay. I can only.
Are you ready? Are you ready to start?
Yeah, but I'd like to see more than your forehead. Can you please adjust the camera? There we go. I see your face now.
Yeah, I was just. Yeah, I think we're good.
Okay.
Leave it here because that man's probably taller than me. I was just leaning this way and he didn't know it.
If possible, we could move the camera in the back slightly to the right so that we can see everybody in the room. That would be good too.
Okay, David, are you ready to get started?
I'm already recording.
Okay. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Rotary Club of Kerrville. I am so excited to see everybody's faces. We're just getting more and more people coming, and it's so exciting. And everybody online, we miss you, but it's so happy to see your faces too. If you could please mute your phones while we're here, and also online, our guests online, if you can mute your computers as well, we certainly would appreciate it. And I would like to invite Mark Disdar to lead us in the invocation and the pledge.
Bow with me, please. God, we bow before you and we call on your grace to heal us and help us and give us wisdom to know the true path in these crazy, crazy times. We pray for the blessings on those who are hurt by this panic over this disease and this craziness in our government. Lord, we pray that you will just open the envelope of wisdom and sprinkle it over this group, that we may be the givers of your love and your light to our community. Thank you for this food and for this community we can serve. In Jesus' name, amen. Please pray. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mark. That was lovely. I'd like to introduce Dennis Glenwinkle to you guys so he can introduce our speaker.
Marta, turn off the share screen.
Which one? This one? Good afternoon, Rotarians. We're going to have a continuation of Clint's idea of bringing some unique businesses to make presentations. If you remember, we did the Turtle Creek Olive Farm, and we've done the barbecue place out at Hunt. Before I introduce Steve, I want to introduce number one, his wife, Deanna, right there, and their son, Blake. He was here last week with us. And most importantly, Deanna's mother, Jeannie Hutchinson. Tell a little story about Jeannie. She and her husband were very instrumental in starting Texas Multi-Chem years ago. But the most interesting thing here lately is that she is 90 years old and she is a survivor of COVID. You're welcome. They also have a son, Matt, who's he's with the company also. He's in sales in Amarillo, Texas, in the west part of the state. Let me ask you, how many of y'all played baseball way back in the days when you were young? And what did your baseball fields look like? Sticker burrs. Well, I remember mine in the late 50s in New Braunfels. Our high school baseball field was actually the inbound of the racetrack. The racetrack stands were the stands to the baseball field. The home plate was just inside the inside rail. And, you know, it was hard getting back if the ball got past you running through that sand. No fences and some kind of cage for a dugout, and that was it. And you're going to see some pictures now of what these high school kids play on now. It's amazing, absolutely amazing. You know, they're as good as pros, really, most of them. So anyway, we're going to have a presentation on Texas Multi-Chem. It's owned by Steve and Deanna. Steve was born in Biloxi, Mississippi to a military family, so he moved around quite a bit. Moved to San Angelo 4 years, I think, after he was born. He's a graduate of Central High in San Angelo and Angelo State with a major in business management, a member of Trinity Baptist Church and also a deacon there. And pastimes, he enjoys bass fishing. So Steve, I'll turn it over to you.
Dennis and Rotarians, thank y'all for having me. And a little funny story here at home, when my wife has insomnia, she asked me to read to her, and then my voice puts her to sleep really quick. Being that we just ate lunch, I hope that if I see anybody's head hit their plate, well, I know I'm good all the way around. Thanks again. Just a little bit of background on our company, Texas Multi-Chem. Our business has, like a lot of business, has changed from our inception to what it has become now. And I've got to say this before I say anything else. My wife is a big part of Texas Multi-Chem because we made a deal 40 years ago. I'll go out and make it, and you figure out how to make it last as long as you can. And so she is very frugal. She's enabled me to go out and work and build a business, and while she managed the money, and she is really good at it. And also I'll say about my mother-in-law, Jeannie, her husband, Frank, who's not with us anymore, he died at age 99, month and few days from being 100. Back in our early days of our company, Frank provided a lot of leadership, and he bought some interest into the company. He came from a sales background, and he was very instrumental. But between these two ladies, they are prayer warriors, and they prayed us out of the 80s. If any of you guys were in business in the 80s, they prayed us out of the 80s, and they prayed us into prosperity, and they prayed us into having a successful business. And above all of that, we have to give credit to our senior sales manager, who is Jesus Christ. It is just amazing how God just keeps blessing our company, and how we look up, we're thinking, where's our next big job coming from? And all of a sudden it shows up. And, you know, God has been faithful, and we try to be faithful to him. But our company is a sports field contracting company. The name is a little deceiving. Texas Multi-Chem. We started off selling all different kinds of industrial chemicals. My first love has always been growing grass. And because I came from a sports background, I've always felt like our kids deserve to have a good place to play ball. When I moved to Kerrville in 1977, we didn't have a good place to play ball. Our fields in Kerrville were horrible, but it wasn't just Kerrville. A lot of places did not have good ball fields. kind of our business is divided up into three sections. We design turf care programs. That's the agronomy side of our business. We help school districts and colleges and little leagues with their, okay, sorry. We help school districts, colleges, little leagues develop good turf grass on their athletic fields. And we design a program, we give them a recipe, and it shows them what to do year-round to make sure that they have a good, safe place for their kids to play. We also renovate existing fields. So we have a lot of weird-looking equipment, laser grading equipment, all kinds of materials, spreading equipment, tillers, and soil modification tools that we use. And we do that over a pretty good sized part of the state. We started the business in 1980. Right now we have 28 employees, and that's growing. Our company has 3 divisions or 3 locations. We have our main office is here in Kerrville. We have another hub in El Campo, Texas, and the most recent one is in Ennis, just south of Dallas. And on our horizon, we know now that we need to put one up somewhere in the Lubbock, Plainview area. So we're hoping to have that started before too long. Why Kerrville? Why did you start this business in Kerrville? I get asked that a lot. Well, in 1968, I was a sophomore in high school playing baseball for San Angelo Central. Every year, San Angelo Central visited Kerrville and played the Kerrville Tivy, we thought it was pronounced, the Tivy Antlers. In that first year when I was a sophomore, I'd never been to Kerrville before. So we came down here, we played a doubleheader. When I got home that night, it was about 1 o'clock in the morning. I went in and woke my dad up, told him about the games. For some reason, my mom and dad couldn't make that trip. And I said, oh, and by the way, Dad, I found the place that someday I'm going to live. And he kind of shook the cobwebs out. And he says, Kerrville? Why Kerrville? I said, Dad, they've got a river that runs through town that the water is so clean and clear, you can actually see the bottom. Well, we had the Concho River in San Angelo, and you couldn't see 2 inches down into it. I said, Dad, they got trees that I promise you, they're 150, 200 foot tall. I don't know what kind of trees they are, but they're beautiful. There's hills, there's trees on the hills, there's deer, there's turkey running around. I said, if I ever get a chance to live in Kerrville, I'm gonna live in Kerrville. Well, I went on to college. We lived in Austin for a couple of years, hated every minute of it. Couldn't wait to get to Kerrville, and we got here. We kept trying to move away from Kerrville, and God just kept us here, and here we are. It's been a great place to raise a family and to start a business. We have about 200 plus school districts that we work with around the state, a bunch of colleges. I don't know how many number of fields altogether we help manage, but it's bunch, 600 to 800 fields or so. Our business has a lot of agronomy involved in it. We like to say we're agronomists that know how to build fields and help manage the fields. We do a lot of fertilization. We buy tons and tons of product. So we get a lot of bag product in our warehouses, in our 3 warehouses. They come in, they go out, and they come in and they go out. Just it's a very physical business, a lot of heavy materials that we're constantly moving around. We also have quite a fleet of vehicles. We've got all this equipment, and none of our jobs are just here in Kerrville. They're in San Antonio, they're in Austin, they're in Lubbock. We did a job 2 weeks ago in Dalhart. It takes 9 hours to get to Dalhart. We do jobs as far west as Van Horn and all the way to Port Isabel on the south. Cover a large area. Some of the things that we do is custom spraying. We have all these fancy spray rigs, so we spray insecticides and herbicides to selectively kill weeds and pests. I like to tell people we have a zero tolerance for a fire ant. We don't ever want to see a fire ant show up on one of our ball fields. If you were playing football right now and you fell into a fire ant pool, a fire ant mound, you'd know what I'm talking about. It's just not a good thing. Our business has kind of changed over the years. More and more people are outsourcing this stuff to make their fields safe. When I was a kid, my coaches had this thing. They didn't even try to kill the sticker burrs because they didn't want their linemen laying on the ground. They wanted their linemen, as soon as they hit the ground, they wanted to pop back up and look for somebody else to hit. And well, sandburrs not fun to be laying on, but nowadays there's a zero tolerance for it. So our whole idea is to try to make the fields as safe for the kids to play on as possible. So we have all this weird looking equipment like a deep tine aerator that punches a hole in the ground about this far, pulls the core out. We do a lot of top dressing with sand to make the areas smooth and to make the soil better for growing grass in. We do a lot of verticutting and vacuuming. How many golfers do we have in here? You know what verticutting and deep tine aerating and top dressing is, because that's something they do on golf courses all the time. I had a golf course superintendent one time. He says, "Oh man, you guys in the sports field world, y'all think you got all these problems." And I said, "Well, I'll tell you what we'll do. You can come play golf on my football field if you'll let me come play football on your golf green." And I think he understood what it meant. It's one thing to stand on a golf green and putt a bowl in a little hall, but what if you're scrimmaging, you know? So the turf grass necessarily has to be better, has to be safer for the safety of the kids. We do a ton of renovations. So we take an old ball field and bring it up to grade. A lot of moving parts in that. That means fixing irrigation systems. That means getting rid of lips on a baseball field. If you're a baseball player, if you ever played on a field that had a big old hump on it, well, we take those out so the ball doesn't bounce up and hit you in the nose when it comes to the shortstop. Some of these pictures are from some of our jobs that we've done. The bottom right-hand corner is the University of Texas softball field. This one on the bottom left is Kerrville Tyvee's baseball field. We also have to strip dead grass. It goes up into a wagon. We haul it off the field. This is the University of Texas practice field. Just right down the street from Memorial. This is from several years ago. We stripped the middle 70 or 80 feet of their field, had to till it and laser grade it and get it ready for new grass, and then plant new grass in the middle. They liked the way that job turned out so much that they had us come back and do all three of their practice fields. Was it last year or the year before? We also do new construction. So anytime we have an opportunity and the customer has enough budget money to afford to hire us, we like to build the field from the ground up. And that means hauling in all the topsoil to grow the grass. If it's a baseball or softball field, hauling in specialty materials for the infields. We do that this last summer. Blake worked on a big project in San Antonio with the Northside Independent School District. And from May to the end of August, we totally built from the ground up nine fields for Northside ISD. Busy summer. This is kind of a picture that shows you all the moving parts that it takes to build a baseball field. You have warning tracks, you have home plate circles, you have skinned areas, and then you have all the areas of the field that has grass. And the idea is you use laser grading equipment so that you get these surfaces really super smooth so that when you lay your grass on it, it stays really nice and super smooth. We also have laser trenching equipment. laser guided trenching equipment for putting in drainage systems. This was a minor league professional field down in Laredo. When we're all done, that's what it looks like. That's the day that we plant the grass, and we just started watering. So that morning at 6 o'clock in the morning, that field was bare dirt. And by 6 o'clock that evening, it was totally grassed over. And a month later, actually 3 weeks later, they were playing their first home game on it. That's an outfield view of that same field on opening day. That's a picture of Kerrville Tybee's baseball field, which we're very fortunate here in Kerrville. Some of our kids have some of the best fields to play on, and in the whole area, not just the hill country, not just Kerrville, but in the whole state. Kerrville, this baseball field, people that have seen it, they think there's not any college fields any better than this field, and they're probably right. This is a football field that we renovated a number of years ago at Sonora ISD. Totally stripped off all the old dead grass, brought in new topsoil, laser graded it, planted new sod. And this was the day of their first scrimmage on that field. And by the way, everybody in West Texas wants to play their playoff games in Sonora because it's still natural grass, not synthetic turf, and they love playing on natural grass. There's another view of Sonora. This is Burnett ISD. They have quite an artist that works over there that takes care of that field. That's called pattern mowing, and you get all those stripes by mowing in one direction and then mowing in another direction. It actually causes the grass to stripe up like that. He did this one year. The guy's name is Galen Davidson. He did this one year, and he had so many compliments. And then it made it to the Austin ISD 10 o'clock news. And so once he started it, he couldn't stop it. So he still does stuff like that, but he's constantly changing his pattern to make it look different. One of the things that's changed in our industry, and a trend in our industry, is for, especially in football, people are going to synthetic turf. And a few years ago, we were asked to do a research paper for the Texas Association of School Board Organizations, doing a comparative study about the overall cost, synthetic versus natural grass. Well, I don't care how you do it, you can never make a case that synthetic grass in the long run is cheaper than natural grass. Synthetic turf is never, ever going to be cheaper. Not only in the upfront cost, but the ongoing maintenance cost. Blake put this thing together. We got into something a few years ago. We thought, okay, well, I'm not going to build a synthetic field right now, maybe someday, but I don't think so. But for our customers that have it, they need to be maintaining it because they're not lasting like they should. This is some of the crud that we clean off the fields. And he says, your artificial turf is disgusting. And sometimes it really is. This is just some of the trash that we've been picking off of synthetic fields. I mean, there are cleats, there's chin buckles, we found syringe needles, we have found jewelry, and a lot of girls play soccer. A lot of girls have fake fingernails. We found fingernails out on these fields that we've screened out of them. And it's just amazing how disgustingly dirty these fields can get. Our system we do is called deep cleaning, where we come in and decompact the crumb rubber to loosen it up. And then we're able to go over with another machine that sifts all the crumb rubber up and gets the trash out of it, and then lays it back out and grooms it down. And then when we're through, we can run this special drag over it. And when we walk off the field, it's ready to play on again. We also can disinfect turf because there's not really a biological environment in turf. It's all synthetic materials. You don't have microbes like you do in topsoil. that can kill bacteria, that can kill funguses and things that are bad for people. And so it's kind of a sterile environment, but they still get dirty. We have sandstorms. I was telling a coach one day, he said, "Oh, we don't need to do anything to clean ours." He said, "We don't get it dirty." I said, "Well, how do you keep the dogs and the cats off of it?" They said, "Oh, well, we don't let dogs and cats in our facility." And I said, "Well, what about the birds?" He said, "We don't allow birds to fly over either." So there is crud that gets on these fields, and they need to be clean for the safety of our kids. So we found a disinfectant product that we can spray on the fields that'll kill the bacteria, at least in the short term. Natural grass and synthetic turf. Natural grass sports fields are cheaper, they're safer than synthetic turf. And when to choose synthetic turf over natural grass. There are people who need synthetic turf, people that have so many teams playing on the same field that you can't spread the traffic out. A natural grass field is only going to survive a certain number of hours of play per year. And so having a small school district that has a lot of teams playing on the same field, they probably need synthetic turf. But there's very few of those people. Most of the people that have synthetic turf are doing it because they're trying to keep up with the Joneses. They're trying to keep up. In fact, we got synthetic turf because Alamo Heights had back in the day had turf, and we had to have it because Alamo Heights had it. So once you go there, it's hard to ever go back because of cost. But we spent $900 and something thousand putting in our turf. This little comparison study that Blake and I put together, if you see at the top there, it says years 1 through 5. After 5 years, the comparative cost, $936,000 to have synthetic turf. And this is an average, they all can be different. And to do a natural grass field, to build it properly and to maintain it for 5 years, a cost of $393,000. That's assuming that you're going to spend $250,000 building it right versus $900,000 for putting in synthetic turf. If you look at it after 10 years, it even gets more dramatic. Your cost for natural grass, less than $600,000, but the synthetic turf bill goes up to $1.4 million. And the reason for that is because after about 8, 9, or 10 years, you have to jerk up the old rug and put a new rug down. So, like I said, it's really, really difficult to make a case that synthetic is ever going to be less expensive than natural grass. So that's the trend. Now they're even doing baseball and softball fields. So we felt like we had to, since we're in the maintenance business, we felt like we wanted to do something for our turf customers by offering them a service where we can refurbish those fields and make them safer and make them cleaner. And one of the reasons we did is because we got grandkids that play on these very fields. So that's the trend in our industry. But if you notice, how many Southeast Conference football fans do we have in here? If you're an Aggie, you're a Southeast Conference football fan. Almost every single field, maybe every single football field in the Southeast Conference has natural grass. You go to the Big 12, and probably 70% of them are synthetic. But the ones that have synthetic in the Big 12 all have one thing in common. They all want to go back to natural grass. And the reason for that is because they have a hard time recruiting big-time running backs, big-time receivers, because they don't want to play on plastic grass. They want to play on a really well-maintained natural grass. And so maybe that trend is going to change. But the high schools, once they've invested in that $900,000, it would cost like $700,000 or $800,000 to take that out and go back to natural grass. Not many independent school districts are going to do that. So those are some of the things that we are constantly talking about and preaching to our customers, that there are better ways to build natural grass fields than what we had 30, 40 years ago. And, but sometimes that's a hard sell because the athletic director wants turf. The reason they like turf is so they can practice on it every day and not destroy it. And they don't want to have to fight with the maintenance director for the proper maintenance of the field. And even more importantly, they don't, as coaches, they don't want to have to be the ones out there doing all the mowing and the painting and the aerating and those things. So it's an easier play for them to just get turf. As long as they can get 3 or 4 of their school board members convinced that it's time for turf, here you go. That's kind of been the trend in the industry for a lot of years. Blake and me and other guys at Texas Multi-Chem, our job is to convince people there's a better way to have natural grass, and which is a safer surface for the kids to play on. That's the Texas Multi-Chem story. We've been doing this since 1980. And our business just keeps growing. And I'm about ready to turn it over to the younger generation. I think my wife would like for us to turn that over to the younger generation. But any questions? Yes, sir. Okay, the question is laser grading. It's not as sophisticated as it sounds. What we have is a laser transit that's on a large tripod. We dial in the specific slopes that we want to grade the field at. Our tractor that has a laser box on the back of it receives that that laser beam, and it has a hydraulic piston on the back that automatically raises and lowers the box so that it stays on grade. If you know what tolerance grading is, close tolerance grading for us means over 100 foot, we don't want it to vary more than about a ½ inch. So very, very smooth. And you can't even get concrete that smooth. Good question. Yes, sir. I built the Sol Ross soccer field. That's the only field we've built from scratch. And we did that about 4 years ago and it turned out very good. And now if we could just get the maintenance department to do what they're supposed to do, you could, yeah. We also renovated their baseball infield on Coconut Field. What a wonderful facility. That was one of my great joys in life. That field, some very famous people, some of you older guys know who Dizzy Dean was, and Pee Wee Reese. They used to play on that field out in Coconut Field out in at an Alpine. It really is. Really is. You got to go down, if you ever get back to Alpine, go down into the bowels of the stadium. It's amazing what's down there. They got a whole living quarters down there. Bill?
I was looking at the chart up here. Why does the synthetic turf take so much, especially that first 5 years? Why does it take that much to make? What kind of maintenance?
Well, the original cost is $900,000 just to put it in. And just like on the turf, on the natural grass side, we had $250,000 installation, an upfront installation. So it costs $250,000 to build a really good football field with grass. It costs $900,000 plus to put a good synthetic field in. The maintenance costs are quite a bit different. The maintenance cost for natural grass is a lot more in a year's time versus taking care of synthetic turf. Those are only a few $1,000s. I think our maintenance cost is just a few $1,000s. But the overall cost over a 5-year to 10-year period is where the big disparity comes.
Cranes, the wings, bases, all that whole area. Water is such an issue. Virtually all those people from synthetic because of the lack of water.
What's amazing to me is how they can water their yards every day around there. They're taking water out of the Ogallala aquifer. They totally abuse the water for every other use, but then they use the lack of water as a reason to have synthetic turf. So I guess I'm saying all that to say this: if they would just water their athletic fields properly, that wouldn't be a big issue. There are places where the quality of the irrigation water is very poor, and it makes a harsh growing environment for the grass. We see that in some places in South Texas, like Refugio, for example. They pretty much had to have synthetic turf because their grass, I don't know how the people don't die from drinking that water. It's just got a ton of sodium in it. It's really, really high sodium. So there are people that have water issues. A lot of those places in West Texas are using it as an excuse to have synthetic turf, whenever it really probably is not the real issue. Yes, sir.
Isn't there a big issue with whenever they do pull up that turf because it has the rubber stuff in it and they're trying to get it disposed of because it's.
Yes, it's a Class 2 hazardous waste. There was quite a big scare. Some of y'all may have seen this on TV a few years ago. NBC did a big expose on crumb rubber. That's the little rubber pellets. Crumb rubber is made out of tires, stripped tires. And here's something that never has made sense to me, and it scares me because my grandkids play on these fields. The plants where they take used tires, grind them all up, take the steel belts out of them, pelletize it. From the time that they start grinding on those tires till the time they put it in the bag, they're wearing hazmat gear every minute of the day. But yet we put it in a sack and we take it to Timbuktu, Kerrville, Texas, and put the same material on our fields for our kids to play on. And nobody seems to care about doing research on it. It's kind of, don't get me started on this one. I can talk a while, but good question though. Anybody else? Sure. Out of this one here?
Yes.
Is there anybody online that's Zooming with us right now that has any questions?
Guess not.
I'm not seeing anybody.
Okay. He said.
Hey, Steve, it's Wayne.
There we go.
Steve,
Yes, sir.
here we go. You've told me the story before, but it might be an interesting story for everybody to hear. Tell them about when you first realized that you actually had a business.
That I actually had a business?
Yes, sir.
Well, in 1987, I was asked to join the Little League board here in Kerrville. And I thought I was all puffed up. They want me to be on the Little League board. Well, once I got on there, I found out why they really wanted me. They found out that I knew how to grow grass, and so they thought I'd be the perfect candidate to build them some ball fields. And so I remember the very night that they told me this, and they said, here, we've got this $60,000, and we want you to build us 2 Little League fields. And I thought, I'm trying to start a business, trying to get it off the ground. When am I going to have time? So I went to, that's before cell phones. I went to phone and I called my wife at home and I said, Deanna, they want me to build ball fields for them. She says, well, do you know how to do that? I said, well, not really, but I think I can figure it out. And so here's the backstory on that is I built 2 Little League fields out there off Spur 100. And they were the best Little League fields anywhere around. And while we were playing that first tournament, the superintendent of schools from Jourdanton, Texas, came up to me. I'm out there on my mower, mowing the infield. He said, hey, somebody told me you built these fields, and I'm wondering, could you come to Jourdanton and build me some that are this good? He said, these Little League fields are 10 times better than the high school fields that we have. So, you know that when that light bulb goes off in your head, I'm going, you mean I've been doing all this for free and now there's somebody willing to pay me to do this? So that was the beginning of it in 1987. Up until that time, we were selling fertilizers and weed killers and things, and we were learning the business, the agronomy side of it. But we really never thought that somebody would be willing to pay us to do what we were doing. They have, and they hadn't quit. Thanks, Wayne.
Thank you, Steve.
Yes, sir.
How much competition do you have? I'm impressed that you have such a wide range of business.
There's only a few really sports field contracting companies that are dedicated contracting companies on sports fields. There's a lot of landscape companies who think they know how to do ball fields, but they're really people that work in your yard at home, not necessarily sports field specialists. So as far as the true sports field contractor, there's probably only about 8 or 10 of them in the whole state of Texas.
You developed a reputation in your, how do you rate yourself against the other 8 or 10?
Well, we think we're the best. My son tells me that we're the best. My wife tells me we're the best, so we must be the best. You know, your reputation is only as good as your last job. And so we have to really work hard. And you know, we've gone through spells where our guys were so busy and working so hard and so many hours, and they were just one job piled on top of the next job, piled on top of the next job. And sometimes you have to take a deep breath and say, wait a minute, somewhere along the way, we have not paying attention to the fit and the finish and the quality of our jobs. And, you know, so you have to kind of just keep reinvesting yourself and keep raising the bar so that it's as good as what we've always wanted it to be. And that's a real challenge for owners, because the bigger you are, the more spread out you are. But good question, though. Thanks. Thank you, Tammy.
We really, really appreciate your presentation. It was really awesome. And if you're a sports fan or not, you have to be really interested in what you were talking about. I happen to be a sports fan and have been on a lot of those fields you talked about. So it's kind of cool to hear all of that. So thank you so much. And you also had, your children played here, and you have grandchildren now playing here. So I think maybe would a love of sports also have guided you in your new business? And we want to nominate you to be a Rotarian. Yes. Okay, guys, we have a little bit of business. Stephanie, do you have a Families and Rotary announcement for us?
I don't, but on Zoom, we had a few chats just thanking him for supporting the Chalk Festival and supporting youth sports. So please let him know.
He heard you, so thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Okay, and it's not really in the line of Families and Rotary, so I was going to announce it I have told y'all previously that Tim Kronwagi was nominated for Time Dealer of the Year through Time Magazine and Ally Financial. It's a pretty big deal. He was one of 40 in the entire nation. Yesterday was the award ceremony, and while he wasn't named the Time Dealer of the Year, he was one of 5 finalists out of 40 in the entire nation. So it was a really cool thing. And when you see him, I think you would appreciate some notes of congratulating him, because it was just really a neat thing. They had to move it from it was at the NADA National Convention, which had to become virtual like everything else. So they did a really good job of trying to make it special for those people. So yay for him. And it was deserving. It was very sweet. And Kerrville, Texas was all over the screen. So, nationwide, everybody's heard about Kerrville, Texas. Did you want to clap? Is that what you were going to do? Yes. Okay, and then Peterson Health. I wanted to talk a little bit about COVID because everybody's heard bad news, scary news for the last few months. And while we should not let our guard down, we should not stop being careful and not stop doing the things that we've been doing to be safe. We have seen a really drastic change in our numbers, which means that we're being good out there. And right now, Peterson yesterday reported only 9 new cases, which it had been averaging in the 30s. And more in the 50s sometimes, and hospitalizations are down to 5 from the 30s as well. So that just means we're making progress. Vaccines are coming, so just keep doing what you're doing and stay safe. But it was some good news finally to report, and I wanted to do that. Other announcements, I say it every week, invoices, make sure you paid your invoices. If you haven't paid one, you were billed on January 1st. So if you haven't seen that, we'll be glad to send you another one. That's one of the hard things to do in emails. They can sometimes get lost. So let us know if you don't have your January 1st invoice. March 16th is our next blood drive. I can't tell you the amount of urgent pleas I'm getting from the South Texas Blood and Tissue Center. They have such a terrible shortage. I've seen them say that they have urgent pleas before, but I've never seen them begging like they're doing now. So if you feel comfortable and are inclined to do so, please consider registering for our next blood drive, which will be March 16th at the Hill Country Youth Event Center. Jeff, would you like to introduce our guest and talk about the main event?
Absolutely. Thank you, President Tammy. Well, I was going to say our guests, but they've already been introduced today by Dennis. So it's Steve and his family. Steve, I don't have a ball field in my backyard, but I could use some new turf if y'all do that. So main event, as of right now, out of 155 envelopes, we have 64 to go to hand out to all members. So thank y'all so much. We're getting a lot of checks already back to us. So it's Jill, I see you sitting there. I got yours right here in front of me. So but it's awesome to see the club stand behind everything. It is our only fundraiser that we do every year, and not being able to meet in person and do it is a little challenging for everybody. So it's the support is overwhelming. We are still doing the live or the virtual silent auction. We have 14 items right now. We want to get to 20 before we go live with that. We're going to continue to add more items to it. We can add up to 100 items on it. We can do it that way. Notre Dame was very successful with it. And I think everybody's gonna like some of the stuff that's on there. So it's very nice. So with that, thank you all so much. The live auction will go live, or the virtual auction will go live as soon as we have 20 items. It will close on the 30th of March, so we know who got what. And our main event drawing will be on the 31st, which is Wednesday. It's the last Wednesday of March. And our meeting is going to be dedicated to that, so we know who gets $10,000 and all the other great fun prizes that we have. So thank you all very much. President Tammy, thank you.
Well, you have to be able to congratulate Jeff and his committee on the bravery they have to be able to step up and adapt to a COVID world when you have to raise $50,000. Another thing I'd like to say is that is just really heartwarming to know that even though we're not on meeting and we have people coming virtually, that we only have 60 packets to hand out. So thank you so much for supporting him. He's working hard and we appreciate it. Okay, well, that we just learned new information. Stephanie Miller for Families in Rotary, we want to announce that Rotarian Amanda Taylor just had a baby. So congratulations to them. Did I say Rotarian? Yeah. Oh, a baby Rotarian. Yeah, she's always getting applications. So Christy's always working. Our next week's meeting is going to be our Valentine stories, which are really fun. And I don't know who they are. I haven't been told yet. So it's going to be a surprise to all of us and it'll be lots of fun. We also plan to give out Paul Harris Awards. As you saw, we've started inducting, doing some normal business as safe as we can, but we had some inductions 2 weeks ago and we have Paul Harris fellowships to hand out next week. So we're doing really great. Also, we didn't draw for wine because we had such a long meeting last week, but I think we should give out some wine this week. Greg Peschel, are you wearing your pin and are you still online? I think he just wanted to hear Steve and he left, so he's not here. The next person is Mike Wilson. Yay! So Mike Wilson gets wine for this week. So thank you so much. I don't have anything else for the good of the club unless anybody else doesn't have anything. We will, it looks like Charlie does. Let's see what Charlie. Oh, congratulations, Jill Sadberry, for having a new grandbaby. Boy or girl? A boy. Oh, here or somewhere else? Virginia. Have you been there yet? Yeah, yay. Well, congratulations. I love my children more than anything, but grandchildren are a whole other level. So yes. Okay, so if you'll join me in the 4-way test. Of the things that we think, say, or do, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?